So today I'm just going to show you how I made the main percussion sound that runs through the entirety of the remix. It's very loud in the mix and it's the main source of rhythmic energy. It also is the main melody. So let's jump in. So the melody I've created through drawing in the transposition that is triggering the conga cell of the C78 core kit. I'm a huge fan of the Ableton's core kits. I use the 606, the 707, the 909 a ton. Yeah, they're amazing. And for this sound, I have added a lot of plugins to give it the color that I want. And it starts with some light saturation, and then the main body, the main processing work starts with the Ableton pedal, and I'm a huge fan of this. The pedal is amazing for adding color to sounds and to thicken sounds up. If you ever got a problem with the sound being too thin, try the pedal first. Like for instance, a snare, amazing on 707 snares, particularly if you use the overdrive mode. But for here, I've got it on fuzz. I use all these different modules for different purpose. But for instance, if I turn it off, check the sound without. It's cool, but with, it's just another level. Depending if that's what you want, but for this purpose I do. And then I have, you can push the gain on that as well to give it more distortion crunch. And then I've killed the tops with an EQ. And then I use the Filter Freak. Now the Filter Freak is one of my favorite plugins to add natural variation to sound over time. There's lots of different ways I like to do that, which is ways to prevent the human ear from getting fatigued. The human ear likes variation, so the more ways you add subtle variation, whether it be through velocity and other methods, then the more the better. And for this instance, I have created that variation through having an LFO that is modulating a low-pass filter and a high-pass filter. And it's doing it in a subtle way, and also the LFO is not a gridded synced LFO. So the whole idea with this is it's to make the sound not conform to the 4 bar or the 1 bar grid structure, and it's to kind of take the track away from that. And the more ways you can do that, the better, within reason. So, and for this, I've got a sine wave LFO that's triggering the both a high pass and low pass. It's doing it in a subtle way, and over time the kind of tops of the sound particularly are coming and going, are softening and then hardening, and that is really nice for the human ear. And you can push the input as well. This input adds a lot of crunch. Yeah, I love to really push that for certain sounds. So yeah, anyway, that's the filter. And then a bit of auto filtering. Well, actually not, I haven't used it for an auto filter. I've just drawn in a low pass, which I can control myself rather than the filter being controlled by an LFO. I can control it through my own automation. And then I use Echo Boy. So Echo Boy is an amazing plugin for both a delay but also as a vintage warmer. I love using it as a vintage warmer. The key is when you do that, do use it for that purpose, you make sure that it's 100% wet, and then you use it in time mode, and then 0 milliseconds, 0 feedback, and you can try the different style modes, and then you, I reduce down the stereo width, otherwise it tends to be very wide and you get phasing issues. So often I have this set to mono, but here I've just got a little bit of stereo. You can also push the input to add some drive, saturation. It's a super, super cool plugin. I really recommend that you use it for both delay, but also as a vintage warmer. Just make sure that you set the wet dry fully wet when you're using it, just as a warmer. And then I use the vinyl. So vinyl, just to add some vinyl warping. Be careful with these dust and scratch features. They often add these pops and crackles that often become more problematic than they're worth, but great for adding that kind of final warping. And then a bit of EQing, the upcut, a bit of mids, then another bit of auto filter. I think that's kind of redundant, to be honest. And then the Valhalla vintage reverb that I use with a tight reverb and a shortish decay, smallish size, nothing crazy on the wet dry, 17%. And then I'm using the 1970s color mode. You've got different options there. And then I'm using the mode non-linear. You should be using, like, making sure that you're using different reverb for different purposes. It's really important. And for here, I'm using the non-linear. This non-linear is also great in 1980s color mode for 1980s snares. So give that a try. And yeah, one of my favorite reverb plugins. Anyway, so I hope that helps and that you enjoyed the remix, and peace out.